Here is every useful idiot eco-supremacist activist. This British woman who excoriates a dude for having his car engine run.
Yeah, so that's you.
For what
You're
reason?
sitting in the car with the engine running, you're polluting the atmosphere. That is a crime now.
How is it a crime?
Because you are sending untold, nasty emissions of poison all over this area.
What, really?
You shouldn't be allowed.
Am I really?
Yes,
I think
you are
I
really.
think
Really, as you live and breathe, as you're talking to me now, you are sitting there with your engine running.
And you're sat there with a hat.
Atmosphere.
And you're sitting there, and you're standing over there with a hat on. I'm not complaining about that, am I?
Well, that might be a crime against fashion, but it's certainly not a crime as in the police are going to get me, are they?
Okay, so what? You're going to call the police because I'm just sat in my car?
You're sat in your car with your engine running. If you were sat in the car with your engine off, I wouldn't say anything about it.
But love, it's an electric car, though.
I would just go off on my way and, enjoy my afternoon rather than engaging in a pointless conversation with you.
No.
Although I hope it's not pointless, because I'm hoping that you're going to turn that bloody engine off.
Love, it's an electric car.
No, you've got a child in the back there.
Love, it's an electric car.
Do you know what you're doing to that child? You've got the window open, talking to me, as you would, of course.
But I'm saying it's an electric car, though.
It's not an electric car.
It's an electric car. Love, there's no emissions coming out of it.
What are you pointing at that for? What's that?
No.
What is that? What? Oh, so that tells me it's an electric car.
You're touching my car now. What? You've got the right.
All right.
You've got the right to invade into my finger.
I'm not going to touch your car again.
Thank
but
you.
I'm just telling you. You can't just point to that insignia, which I've never seen before,
and
tell me that that's an electric car.
But it's an electric car. There's no emissions.
That suits you, doesn't it?
But
Okay, so it's a very quiet engine. It is really quiet. I'll give you that. It's quiet, but it's silent but deadly. So it is silent but deadly. Those poisons, those gases,
is no engine.
they can't be seen.
There's no engine.
Look, just listen to me, all right?
I'm listening.
You listen to me.
All right.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. Can we have a decent, peaceable conversation, please?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to explain to you.
Yeah.
Right, you see, there are things that you can't see, right?
Yeah.
Gas is one of them.
Yeah.
Poisonous
Learned that in
gas
fifth
is
grade
something that you
folklore.
can't see,
Yeah.
all right?
Yeah.
You can't see it.
Yeah.
And it's poisoning. You see, these people here,
Yeah.
they agree with me, you see.
What? Oh,
They
they
agree
really?
with me. They do, yeah.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that this is there's no emissions.
Picture of you and all.
As exhausting as that was to listen to,
Yes, it was.
that's why it's the every eco-supremacist activist. Ironically, of course, if she actually knew what she's talking about, and he knew what he was talking about, we could talk about the fossil fuels required to make the lithium batteries in those Teslas. But regardless, that wasn't the point she was making. The point is she didn't recognize what a Tesla was. She doesn't understand the emissions difference between an electric vehicle like a Tesla and your standard issue combustion engine. But okay, I'll tell you. You know what she'd be fun to do?
What?
Fun to have her do with you, with us.
What?
Play a game of Daybreak.
What is Daybreak?
Maybe for Father's Day. It's right around the corner. Daybreak is set to launch after years of development to tackle how to bring the world together to combat climate change. The game designer, Matteo Menapace, we felt we can use games to talk about climate change to model the big problem in a way that's playable, that's understandable by players in a way that gives people agency over their choices. Sure, board game. In my day, it was Risk. Today, it's not playing against each other. It's playing collaboratively to come up with a solution that reduces emissions and addresses this scourge of climate change. And the whole group loses if any player has too many communities in crisis from the impacts of climate change. That sounds like a fun Saturday night with the family, doesn't it? For more on these fun people, I'm pleased to be joined by Bjorn Lomborg, president of the Copenhagen Consensus think tank, author of the recently released Best Things First. Bjorn, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, Dan. It's great to be back.
I understand you try to keep it high-minded and such, but, real people have to deal with these professional scolds like that woman in the parking lot who decided to accost that dude in his Tesla for running his Tesla. They get a little off-putting, to say the least. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. But look, I mean, and Dan, maybe I'm just an internal optimist, but I think it is worth pointing out that this woman and many others, they fundamentally want to do good. Now they may be misapplied, they may be focused on the wrong thing, but in some ways, it's great that people want to do good. What we just need to have a conversation about is how do you actually do that? Both on climate change. Look, it is a real problem, and there are smart ways to fix it. Unfortunately, we're spending almost all of our money on not fixing it smartly. But it's also important to remember there are lots of other problems in the world, like, lots of people just not being able to sustain their kids, not enough food. They don't have enough education. I mean, they die from easily curable infectious diseases. Because we focus so much on a few things like plastic straws and all these other things that make it into the news, we often forget all the other things that are incredibly important. So I want to use all the facts that people care about the world, but then say, all right, how can you do it best? And not surprisingly, that's actually what my new book, Best Things First, is all about.
Well, this recent crisis with respect to the forest fires in the West, up into Canada, the Northeast, up into Canada. Tom McClintock, who's a congressman from California, writes about preventing forest fires. This is from 5 years ago, but it just repeats itself over and over again every year. He writes, for much of the 20th century, harvesting excess timber produced thriving forests by matching tree density to the ability of the land to support it. Foresters designated surplus trees, and loggers bid for the right to remove them at auction, with the proceeds going to the U.S. Treasury. But in the 1970s, Congress passed a series of laws subjecting federal land management to time-consuming and cost-prohibitive environmental regulations. Instead of generating revenues, forest management now costs the government money. As a result, timber harvested from federal lands has declined 80%, while acreage destroyed by fire has increased proportionally. The environmental left blames climate change, yet this doesn't explain the dramatic difference between federal lands and private forests that practice scientific forest management. The boundary lines can often be seen from the air because of the condition of the forests. How clever of the climate to decimate only the lands hamstrung by these environmental laws. The management of our natural resources as well, a topic the left doesn't want to discuss. They just want to impose regulations that are going to bring Mother Nature to bear, as it were.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, fundamentally, we know that a very large part of the reason why we have localized fire problems is because there's much more fuel. Part of this is actually a good outcome of the fact that global warming is caused by CO2, which actually is also a fertilizer, which create a lot more green stuff. The world is much greener today than it used to be because of CO2. That should be a positive, but it also means we have a lot more flammable material left over, and that leads some places to have much more fire. For instance, in California, absolutely we should have much more prescribed fires. We should also have better zoning. Everybody wants to build out where it's essentially a tinderbox, and then we're surprised that afterwards you see more houses going up in fire. But the reality is, if you look at this on a global level, we have good data since 1997 from satellites. We've seen a decline, a dramatic decline in the area that's actually burning every year. Why? Because people are smart. People actually know how to adapt. And people know how to avoid fire. This does not mean, again, global warming is not a problem, but it means that we use this fear and make everybody scared about the wrong things. And that obviously means we end up spending lots of resources ineffectively trying to deal with something like fire. Whereas what we really should be doing is look at where can we find the smart, easy, simple wins. And we seem to not have that conversation enough. And we certainly should have, both on climate, do better zoning, do preventative fires, and then you're in many ways much, much better off. But also remember all the other problems. We need to make education much better around the world. We need to make tuberculosis a thing of the past. We need to focus on these simple things that we can fix where we, for little money, can make the world much, much better. I think everyone, also on the left, would agree on this.
Well, what about the UN? I mean, they came together recently and they set these big goals, 17 goals. Are they reaching any of those goals?
No, I mean they're literally telling us now that we're not going to achieve almost any of them. So this is standard fare for politicians. You promise everything and then you don't actually deliver because it's far down the line. And that's why I wrote the new book, Best Things First, basically to say, look, there's a lot of stuff that's really hard, really complicated, incredibly expensive, and doesn't deliver very much good. Maybe we shouldn't do those policies first. Maybe we should instead deliver some of these very, very simple policies. So let me just give you one example. About 500 million kids right now are in primary school in low and low middle income countries. So, fundamentally the poor half of the world. And they're learning virtually nothing. We have the technology. We know how to actually make them much more productive, make them learn much more. This is basically called learning according to your level. For instance, put them in front of a tablet. It's not their tablet, but put them in front of a tablet 1 hour a day with educational software. That'll teach the kids exactly at their level and teach them 3 years of schooling for every 1 year you have them go through, mostly boring school, but 1 hour a day actually with a tablet. This will cost $10 billion, not nothing, but compared to most other things, very, very small change, and it will make the world about $600 billion better off. This is just, a no-brainer. We can do $65 of good for every dollar spent. And basically I'm trying to make the argument of saying, instead of worrying about stuff where you will spend lots of money and deliver almost no good for the world, shouldn't we focus first on the places where you can spend a little money and do amazing good?
Yeah, well, I mean, the challenge, of course, is that these systems you're describing are really not outcome focused; they're input focused.
No. Yes.
And so it's a mentality change that has to happen, or a management change, or some combination of the two, and that's, of course, a political question.
Sure, but you could also argue. I mean, right now, most climate change campaigners are arguing we should all learn to live with less and be a little poorer and freeze a little more. So I think it's a little easier to get people in, for instance, the educational sector to say, how about we do stuff that'll actually improve educational outcomes? Again, I don't think this is terribly revolutionary. It's just simply stop people from doing the things that cost enormous amounts of money. For instance, Indonesia a decade ago doubled teacher wages, which obviously not surprisingly made teachers incredibly happy, but it didn't actually improve educational outcomes at all. And so again, instead of trying to do stuff that doesn't work, but of course is politically popular, let's try to do something that costs little but has huge impacts. And we know this, so we highlight 12 great areas where, and just get this, for about $35 billion a year. So, for the whole world, this is not a whole lot of money, but it's not nothing. $35 billion a year. We could make the poor half of the world $1.1 trillion richer each and every year. And we could save 4.2 million lives each and every year. This is possibly the best thing we could possibly do in the world for this decade. And so I'm simply saying, shouldn't we first focus on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny.
You're sold.
Well, I mean, it's funny. The things that don't work in Indonesia don't work in Chicago or L.A. or New York either. It has nothing to do with the location. It has to do with the system, the approach. It's something else I wanted to get to too. I mean, this is sort of a recurring problem, but this is part of what needs to be addressed in order to change the mindset here. Because of course people selectively are men and women of science and data when the science and data comports with what they would like to see occur or what their position is. But on this whole wildfire business, the EPA, this is from Steve Malloy, who writes at junkscience.com, and he was part of the EPA transition team under Trump. EPA has something called PM 2.5, which is a way to measure fine particulate matter, they say. They developed this in the 90s. They claim there is no safe level of PM 2.5 that can be inhaled. Inhaling PM 2.5 can kill you within hours of inhalation. about 1 in 5 deaths in the United States are caused by PM 2.5. They've spent 3 decades, billions of dollars inventing this measurement system, and it just is not true. For example, PM 2.5 modeling, New York's death rate should have been about doubled on June 7th and 8th, but not a single death occurred that was or could be attributed to the atrocious air as a result of the fires. Even the backup expectation of an epidemic of asthma failed based on emergency room visits. And it just goes again. We have this model. We are men and women of science and data, but the models are consistently wrong. They consistently don't reflect the reality that we experience, and the models don't go away. We just don't talk about the experiences, or they get shunted aside because there are, of course, greater goods to be pursued, like developing the next PM 2.5.
So I actually, again, I'm a statistician, I'm a social scientist. I haven't done these models. I know a lot of the people who have. My understanding is they're pretty much right. I don't recognize the idea of saying that it should immediately kill people. This is something that happens over the very long term, and I certainly don't expect that this would be true that it kills every fifth, cause every fifth death in the U.S. But air pollution is not a trivial problem, as I understand it.
Right.
But again, it's important to recognize, because we've gotten richer, we've dramatically reduced air pollution, and that's a good thing. We should try to do that, and one of the ways we've done that is put scrubbers and smokestacks. We put catalytic converters in cars. We know how to do a lot of this, and it's actually a smart and simple thing to do. What we should, of course, remember is, for most of the world, air pollution is much, much worse, not because of outdoor air pollution, but because really poor people use dung, cardboard, wood, whatever they can get their hands on, and cook and keep warm indoors with really, really terrible fuels. And so the World Health Organization actually estimate that the average indoor air pollution for about 3 billion people in the world is equivalent to about 20 times the average air pollution in New Delhi or Beijing. These are really terrible levels. It's like smoking a pack of cigarettes every day. So again, we need to get a sense of proportion, and I think that's where we're forgetting, what is it we want? Well, we want cleaner air, we want cleaner water, we want smarter kids, we want better education, we want lots of things. We need to prioritize, and we should do that smartly by looking at how much does it cost and how much good can an extra dollar deliver. And that's one of the things I've been trying to do with Best Things First. Basically say, look, there are some places where you can do amazing good. There are some places where you can waste a lot of money and do almost no good. Let's start with the smart stuff first.
Well, this is, and I totally agree. And this is always the challenge. And this is why you and Patrick Moore, co-founder of Greenpeace, and people like Michael Schellenberger, at least the Michael Schellenberger 2.0, are so important, because we're conservative. I'm conservative. That means conserve things, including what God has bestowed us in terms of our environment. And yes, we have clean air, clean water. This is a threat, right? Nobody's pro air pollution. Nobody's pro dirty water. But you just can't have a reasonable conversation with people who are running around saying the combustion engine is a greater threat to Western civilization than nuclear weapons, which the left has been doing for 30 years. It's just very difficult, which is why your moderating voices are so important, although I don't think they're winning the day yet.
Not yet. But look, this is not about winning the conversation as much as just simply getting people to realize, oh, wait, maybe I can do it slightly less stupidly. If we can sort of move the conversation a little bit towards being smarter with our resources and more smartly focused on where we can really make a huge deal. I think that would be an amazing outcome. This is not, we're never going to fix all of these problems, but we're going to make it better.
Yeah. Slightly less stupid that seems to be a reachable goal. I think that's reasonable.
It is.
Bjorn Lomborg, president of the Copenhagen Consensus think tank, author of the recently released Best Things First, which he was just discussing. Pick up Best Things First, Bjorn Lomborg. Bjorn, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Great to talk to you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. Your business and your money are in good hands with Signature Bank. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hi, I'm Dan Migatz, co-owner and CFO of AM Woodland Outdoor Design in Mundelein, and a new customer of Signature Bank. We specialize in the creative design and construction of outdoor living spaces, providing our residential and commercial customers first-in-class landscaping services. Our company was founded as a one-man operation